What do you make of the Patriots making this move now for a matchup against, as you know, one of the best teams, not only in the AFC, but in the NFL?
Well, both things can be true here, right? On one hand, you can be excited to finally see the number 3 overall pick, Drake Maye, finally make his NFL debut in the real sense. He played earlier, but it was in a blowout. This is his first NFL start. We really get to see our first glimpse of what the future could be in Foxborough. On the other hand, though, I don't love the spot. And so throughout the summer, throughout the spring, whenever Drake Maye arrived in New England, Gerard Mayo talked about the plan in place to develop Drake Maye that should have been independent about where the 2024 Patriots are situated. If the plan was to play Drake Maye in his first start against the Houston Texans, who have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, well, then the plan's wrong, and it's not a good plan. They should have gone down that road for that plan. I think that this feels a little reactionary to the poor start that the Patriots have gone through to start the year. So I'm cautiously optimistic that Drake Maye could fare well, but ultimately you're in front of an offensive line that we've talked about a bunch that has struggled, and now this opponent against a top-tier team in the AFC, it's a tough opening for Drake Maye to begin his NFL career, to say the least.
And I want to get into the defensive aspect of defensive aspect of it from the Texans side of things as they go up against the Patriots. But I want to ask you this, Tyler. What's the biggest difference that you expect to see in the passing game on Sunday against Houston with Drake Maye now starting instead of Jacoby Brissett?
Well, I think you kind of have to take it as a big picture approach, right? Because this is going to be a different offense because it's a different quarterback with a different set of skills. And so you might not necessarily see it right out of the gate with the Houston Texans, but you'd hopefully see some flashes. I think one of the things that you could probably look for is they might be a little bit more in shotgun, a little bit less under center. That's typically what Alex Van Pelt wants to run, is a quarterback under center. But that's not something that these college quarterbacks are typically accustomed to doing. And so maybe to give Drake Maye a little bit more of an easy transition, you see a little bit more shotgun. I think that overall this offense will try to push the football down the field through the air a little bit more. You saw that in the preseason. I saw that firsthand watching Drake Maye during training camp. He seemed a little bit more apt to throw the ball down the field. Of course, we all remember that sensational throw he made during the preseason to Javon Baker. It was incomplete, but it was kind of showing you the style that Drake Maye has. He was able to move up in the pocket, deliver a really nice ball. They just couldn't connect on that play. But things of that nature, I think, are some of the things that you'll see in this game and hopefully that you'll see going forward. And then independent of the passing game, let's not sleep on what Drake Maye can do with his legs. He's a more mobile quarterback than you may realize, more mobile than Jacoby Brissett. And you saw that in the preseason as well. A little read option. He ran for a touchdown. You could see some of that as well.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to see. And just to stick on the passing side of things, we just mentioned it right off the top that the Patriots are dead last in passing yards in the NFL. If you had to take a guess, which wide receiver is going to benefit the most with Drake Maye now under center?
I think in the immediate, it'll probably be Demario Douglas, because the Patriots will probably want to get the ball out of Drake Maye's hands as fast as humanly possible because of the questions along the offensive line, coupled with the opponent in the Houston Texans. They have one of the highest pressure rates in the NFL. They have the 6th highest sack rate in the NFL. So if you want to set your rookie quarterback up for success in the immediate, then I think you have to get the ball out of his hands. And Demario Douglas is a guy that has, if you look at the advanced analytics, great separation stats in terms of getting away from his defender to get open. Now, the Patriots have struggled to find him throughout the first month plus of the season, but I think that that's one of the things to keep an eye on. But as the season progresses, kind of like I just mentioned, pushing the football down the field for those big plays that have just been sorely lacking in this offense, I think that's kind of where Jalen Polk comes in. That's where Kendrick Bourne comes in. So it's kind of he raises all of the wide receivers as the season goes forward with the hope that he does increase the overall passing game.
Yeah, and you've just hit on this already a couple times so far. Houston pressures the quarterback more than any other team in the NFL. And as you and I have talked about a ton, as you've already mentioned, the Patriots' offensive line has been a mess this year. So how do they try to combat that and protect this first-round pick that they obviously value so much and see as the future of the franchise?
Yeah, that's the rub, right? And that's why we're all kind of scratching our heads to say, this is the spot. This is the team that you want to start him against. Are you sure about that? The question, you could have started him last week against Miami, against Tyler Huntley. You didn't want to do that, but then a week later, you're starting him against this team. There's a lot of questions there, but to how to combat the here and now. Obviously, he is starting in this game. How is he going to succeed? It's a little bit of what I just said, getting the ball out quick, finding receivers like Demario Douglas, like Hunter Henry, guys that can get open in short windows right off the snap, not allowing him to more or less sit in the pocket and wait to get hit like we saw Jacoby Brissett do over the first 5 weeks of the season. And I think a lot of it will have to come down to the running game as well, which has a lot of questions. Ramondre Stevenson missed the past couple of days of practice. We'll see what happens on Friday in terms of his level of participation. But whether it's Antonio Gibson, Hasty, you have to have a stable running game as well to make things a little bit easier. Because if all of a sudden you can run the football effectively, as we all know, it sets up play action. It kind of puts the defense on their heels a little bit and doesn't allow them to tee off on the quarterback. And the other thing that I'll mention here as well, and that kind of goes to the defense for the Patriots as well, try not to get down early, because if all of a sudden the Patriots are trailing, that puts you in a game script where Drake Maye has to drop back and pass maybe a little bit more than you'd like to, and it allows those pass rushers like Danielle Hunter, like Will Anderson to tee off and really get after their quarterback. So it's going to have to be a complimentary football game to ease Drake Maye into the NFL.
I was bullish on the Patriots' chances of beating the Dolphins. I picked them for WBZ.com. I will not be doing that this week, and that's because the Texans are obviously one of the best teams in the NFL. 4-1 coming into action on Sunday. Tyler, where do you rank this Texans team in the AFC hierarchy, or as you know, has so many good teams?
Yeah, 4-1 on the year. They have been very impressive pretty much in all phases. C.J. Stroud, one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. We were talking about their defense, the pressure that they're able to apply. The skill position players are a ton of notable names. And on paper, they're very, very good. And I expect them to be in the thick of the AFC championship game realm. They should be a shoo-in to win the AFC South, considering the other teams in that division. The one thing that I think we should kind of pay attention to, though, is that they're the only team currently in the playoff picture in the AFC that has a negative point differential. That usually should set off some alarm bells to say, oh boy, is there a little bit of fool's gold here with this team? Typically, you want to see that in the green and being above these teams and kind of blowing these teams out. And now some of this is skewed from a blowout loss to the Minnesota Vikings earlier in the year, but something to kind of keep an eye on there as well. They play in a lot of one-score games. They typically come out on the other side of those one-score games with a victory. But you have to kind of caution yourself when you look at those teams, especially as we look at them in a big picture standpoint of contending for a deep playoff run, contending for a potential Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah, they just eked out a 3-point win against the Buffalo Bills last weekend, and they did lose Nico Collins in that game as well. He's on the IR with a hamstring strain. Obviously, C.J. Stroud is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he comes into action on Thursday, third in the NFL in passing yards. How do you think the Patriots try to combat him and their offensive attack on Sunday?
Well, it is interesting. The Patriots you wouldn't necessarily call them a lucky team considering what their record are and how they've played so far this season. But from an injury standpoint, they have gotten these teams about as good as you could possibly hope for. I mean, you're playing teams without Christian McCaffrey, without Tua Tagovailoa, and this week you're not facing the NFL's leading receiver in Nico Collins, as you mentioned, out with a hamstring injury on injured reserve. And so I do think that helps the Patriots stay relatively competitive in this game, because you don't have that problem of trying to contain all of the skill position players that Houston has at their disposal. One of the big offseason blockbusters was them acquiring Stephon Diggs. And now you can put a Christian Gonzalez on Stephon Diggs and then have the rest of the secondary focus on containing Tank Dell, Joe Mixon out of the backfield, all of those other skill position players that they have. If all of a sudden it was Nico Collins versus Christian Gonzalez, and then you still have to deal with Stephon Diggs, there's just a lot to deal with this offense. So to miss out on that, I think it helps the Patriots. But overall, this could be tough sledding because they can beat you in so many different ways on offense.
That's the first time I've ever heard lucky associated with the Patriots in 2024, but it is a great point. The Patriots have seemed to have caught a lot of these teams without a lot of their key players. We'll see if the Pats can stop their 4-game losing streak on Sunday. Tyler, as always, appreciate the time, and you can catch Tyler's work on CBSSports.com. And we'll have much more on the decision to start Drake Maye on Patriots All Access tonight at 7 p.m. on WBZ. And on Sunday, we'll get you started with Patriots Game Day at 11:30. Also streaming right here on CBS News Boston. Pats and Texans, they play at 1 p.m., followed by the fifth quarter postgame show, all on WBZ.